They called it epic. But no one left the theater talking. How does a war film with thousands of extras, roaring tanks, and flaming battlefields end up as a quiet disaster? Behind every towering set and heroic shot lies a mistake, a miscalculation, a flop that cost millions and left history forgetting it. Today, we expose the hidden failures of 1960s war movies, revealing the secrets studios tried to hide and why some battles were lost long before the cameras rolled. The Thin Red Line, 1964. It begins like a classic war story, but the connection falters instantly. Audiences expect tension, heroism, and gritty realism. What they got was a film that feels detached, almost clinical. Characters blur together, their struggles obscured by uneven pacing and awkward editing. Critics complained the emotion never landed, and leaving a story of bravery feeling hollow. Yet visually, it offers stark battlefield imagery, trench shots, and black-and-white combat footage, perfect for cinematic narration. The irony is in the contrast. Every frame promises epic war drama, but nothing grips the heart. The disconnect between spectacle and storytelling creates a tension your audience can feel, making it a perfect candidate for high-retention video. Every soldier on screen looks like a hero, but the camera never lets you truly care. That gap between what you see and what you feel builds suspense automatically. By showing these visuals while explaining the failure, viewers stay glued, hoping to discover why such potential never became triumph. Battle of the Bulge, 1965. It promises the biggest World War II battle ever captured on film, but collapses before a single bullet, feels consequential. Battle of the Bulge had everything: massive tank formations, infantry charging across frozen fields, explosions that should leave audiences breathless. On paper, it should have been a cinematic landmark. In reality, the sequences feel staged, historically inaccurate, and oddly artificial. Critics were quick to slam its lack of authenticity, and audiences instinctively sensed the disconnect. The tension comes not from the story, but from watching what should have been epic fall short. Yet visually, the film is a goldmine for cinematic storytelling. Snow-covered battlefields, roaring machinery, tanks navigating treacherous terrain, and soldiers trudging through chaos. But these sequences are mesmerizing on a frame-by-frame level. The retention hook lies in the contradiction between visual spectacle and narrative failure. Viewers are drawn to the chaos while simultaneously questioning each shot. Every roar of engines, every explosion, every tank advancing becomes a tease, promising heroism that never lands. This push-pull effect, the eye rewarded, the mind unsatisfied, is a classic high-retention trigger. Audiences stay, compelled to witness where ambition outpaced execution, examining each scene for hidden moments of brilliance or failure. The film becomes a lesson in how cinematic scale doesn't guarantee impact, and that tension is sometimes created by watching potential implode. The Victors, 1963. A war story told as fragments, lacking a central pulse. The Victors jumps between soldiers, and nations, and missions without establishing emotional grounding. The result is a cold, disjointed narrative that left 1960s audiences unsettled. There are no clear heroes, no coherent arcs, just relentless motion and bleakness. And yet, every frame is visually rich. Trenches lined with barbed wire, cities under siege, battlefields scarred by war. Cinematically, it's compelling, perfect for visual storytelling, but emotionally, it fails to connect. The retention comes from the clash between what you see and what you feel. Characters march, fight, and die, but the story refuses to make you care. Your eyes are drawn to heroism in action, but your mind notices the emotional void. That contradiction creates curiosity. Why does something so meticulously staged leave you cold? Each vignette becomes a hook, forcing viewers to lean in, and searching for meaning that never arrives. By dissecting the lack of cohesion while showing the stunning visuals, attention is maintained throughout. It's a study in the paradox of technical perfection versus narrative failure, illustrating how war can be visually accurate, yet emotionally hollow. Every battlefield shot becomes both a spectacle and a subtle mystery, ensuring viewers remain engaged as the story unfolds, or fails to. The Longships, 1964. Vikings on a cinematic rampage, but the film loses its way almost immediately. The Longships layers together sprawling ship battles, marauding armies, and elaborate sword fights, yet the story drifts, leaving audiences dazzled but emotionally unmoored. Adventure overwhelms meaning, spectacle dominates, and stakes feel almost irrelevant. The tension arises not from plot, but from the mismatch between visual intensity and narrative coherence. Despite narrative shortcomings, the film offers incredible footage: burning ships, clashing swords, armies forming in line, and sweeping landscapes of Northern Europe. Each sequence is a feast for the eyes, creating retention hooks even as the story fails to resonate. The psychological trick is in the contradiction. Viewers are hypnotized by the grandeur, yet frustrated by the lack of story. Every battle scene promises stakes that never arrive, forcing audiences to reconcile what they see with what they feel. This creates a cognitive pull, keeping viewers engaged, leaning forward, hoping the next scene will finally tie spectacle to meaning. The cinematic eye is rewarded. The emotional brain craves explanation. And the gap between promise and payoff becomes the engine of retention. By showing these sequences while narrating the failure, viewers are compelled to stay, drawn by both chaos and curiosity. Play Dirty, 1969. The desert sun beats down, harsh and unrelenting. Soldiers move cautiously, morally gray, and unheroic. Play Dirty strips the genre of glamour, replacing triumphant marches with survival tension and ethical ambiguity. Audiences in the 60s weren't ready for such realism. They expected heroism, but got complexity instead. And yet, the film's visual storytelling is compelling. Tense desert firefights, sabotage missions under scorching sun, and precarious operations against overwhelming odds. Every frame offers cinematic gold, even if the story frustrates. The psychological tension comes from expectation versus reality. Your brain seeks heroism. Your eyes witness moral compromise. This contradiction creates retention. Viewers stay, compelled by curiosity, analyzing each risky mission, firefight, and moment of suspense. The slow buildup and uncertainty pull attention forward, forcing audiences to wonder if any character will succeed, fail, or betray another. Each firefight becomes a hook, each desert maneuver a puzzle. By highlighting why audiences rejected this nuanced take while showcasing visual sequences, engagement remains high. Suspense isn't just in explosions, it's in human behavior under pressure, forcing viewers to lean in, watch every risky move, and experience tension through both observation and insight. Cast a Giant Shadow, 1966. A story of real heroism, lost in execution. Cast a Giant Shadow had historical weight and a star-studded cast, yet the narrative never finds its center. Emotional beats are shallow, moments of courage feel hollow, and the audience is left observing rather than feeling. Visually, however, it is striking. Battle drills, military coordination, and explosions provide compelling footage. The tension comes from the gap between spectacle and story. Viewers are confronted with huge visuals demanding attention, but the heart is absent. Every dramatic shot becomes a retention hook. Audiences watch closely, hoping narrative payoff will arrive. This creates a psychological push-pull. Visual engagement rewards the eyes, while the brain searches for emotional satisfaction. By showing grand sequences while explaining narrative failures, curiosity spikes. Why does a film with so much potential fail emotionally? Each coordinated maneuver, each staged firefight, each heroic pose becomes a magnet for attention. The mind remains engaged, anticipating connection that never fully comes, making the experience simultaneously frustrating and compelling. This tension, the combination of visual grandeur and emotional void, is a classic retention technique, keeping viewers glued, analyzing, and anticipating resolution scene by scene. The 1000 Plane Raid, 1969. The title screams grandeur, but what unfolds whispers mediocrity. The 1000 Plane Raid promised to depict one of the most massive air assaults of World War II, a spectacle meant to thrill audiences with its scale and intensity. On paper, it should have been a cinematic marvel. Hundreds of planes in formation, on explosions lighting the sky, the roar of engines creating heart-pounding tension. Instead, the reality fell flat. Pacing drags, the tension never builds, and reused aerial shots make sequences feel constrained rather than awe-inspiring. Despite these flaws, the film contains a wealth of visually compelling material. Sweeping dogfights, bomber formations slicing through the clouds, and cockpit perspectives that put the audience in the pilot's seat. These are moments made for cinematic storytelling, but they're trapped in a film that fails to connect emotionally. The psychological tension lies in expectation versus reality. Viewers are drawn to the idea of witnessing the biggest air raid ever filmed, yet the execution repeatedly underdelivers. Every takeoff, every formation dive, every bomb dropping creates a visual hook, as the eye is rewarded while the brain instinctively notes the mismatch between what was promised and what is delivered. That contradiction is a retention magnet. Audiences stay to see if the film will ever deliver on its hype, hooked by the spectacle even as disappointment simmers. Each moment of aerial action becomes a tease, a promise of grandeur that remains just out of reach. In a way, the failure itself becomes fascinating. The allure of the attempted spectacle and the knowledge that it didn't work keeps viewers watching, frame after frame, for resolution that never truly comes. The Secret Invasion, 1964. A covert mission is supposed to be dangerous, tense, and unpredictable. The Secret Invasion assembles a team of criminals for a high-stakes wartime operation, yet from the very first sequences, as the tension evaporates, characters lack depth, their decisions often feel mechanical, and suspense drifts in long stretches of uneven pacing. The audience is promised danger, intrigue, and moral stakes, but the payoff rarely arrives. Despite these failings, the film offers cinematically rich sequences, infiltration missions under cover of darkness, prison camp dynamics, and desert operations that are visually dramatic. These shots are compelling, but the emotional and narrative disconnect makes viewers subconsciously wonder why nothing feels urgent. The retention trick lies in that very dissonance. Audiences watch footage expecting suspense, yet detect its absence. Each failed operation, slow-moving plan, and hesitant maneuver creates tension of a different kind, a psychological curiosity about what went wrong and how the mission will unfold. The brain craves resolution, the eyes crave action, and that contradiction forces viewers to remain glued to the screen. The subtlety of the failure actually enhances retention. Audiences are compelled to watch every sequence, examining mistakes, dissecting narrative gaps, and comparing what should happen with what actually occurs. Even the quietest prison scenes become hooks. Whispered commands, secret exchanges, and strategic maneuvers are magnified by the knowledge that the film never delivers the suspense promised. It's a slow burn that rewards careful observation, keeping attention high by exploiting the gap between expectation and execution. King Rat, 1965. and not a traditional battlefield flop, but a psychological one. Set in a Japanese POW camp during World War II, King Rat explores survival, power struggles, and moral decay. Audiences expecting large-scale action or sweeping combat were met instead with quiet tension, slow pacing, and methodical character interactions. The story focuses on manipulation, moral compromise, and the subtle politics of survival, a complex narrative that frustrated viewers at the time. Yet visually, the film is compelling. Tense confrontations, prisoners navigating camp hierarchy, and claustrophobic quarters filled with whispered commands all provide cinematic material ideal for high-retention storytelling. Each frame brims with drama, but it's a drama that is understated, requiring viewers to read between the lines. Like the retention driver is the tension between expectation and reality. Audiences come for heroic action, but stay to witness human behavior under pressure. Every stare, every scheming plan, every negotiation for survival becomes a psychological hook. The film's slow rhythm paradoxically heightens curiosity. Viewers lean in, eager to see who will prevail, who will falter, and why audiences rejected this thoughtful war narrative. The contrast between visual engagement and narrative subtlety keeps attention high. It's impossible to turn away when the narration highlights moral stakes, while the camera captures every whisper, glance, and tense interaction. The slow, methodical approach pulls viewers into the human drama, making the psychological tension as gripping as any battlefield explosion. And the fall of the Roman Empire, 1964. Ambition consumed the production whole. The fall of the Roman Empire aimed for grandeur, tens of thousands of extras, elaborate costumes, immense armies, and palace intrigues that spanned entire cities. Yet the narrative collapsed under its own weight. Despite sweeping visuals and meticulously staged battles, audiences fled theaters, frustrated by a story that dragged and failed to connect. The paradox is striking. Every frame screams epic, but the emotional and narrative impact never arrives. Still, the film provides a treasure trove of cinematic footage. Legions marching, massive sieges, burning cities, sword clashes, and vast political intrigues. Each scene is visually stunning and perfect for high-retention video storytelling, as the tension comes from watching apparent greatness fail. Viewers are hypnotized by spectacle, but cognizant of the narrative shortcomings. Every sweeping battle, dramatic confrontation, and intricate set-piece creates suspense, not in the story, but in the contrast between potential and execution. This cognitive dissonance is a retention magnet. The audience wants to understand why such a massive, beautifully filmed project didn't succeed. Each sequence keeps eyes glued to the screen, each clash and citywide shot reinforcing the tension. The combination of scale, beauty, and failure produces a hypnotic effect, forcing viewers to stay engaged as they watch history attempt and fail to live up to its own cinematic promise. The irony itself becomes part of the story. Grand ambition undone, yet visually mesmerizing, and impossible to turn away from. The 60s promised epic war films, but ambition often outpaced execution. Spectacle dazzled, stories faltered, and audiences left wondering what could have been. Watching these cinematic failures reveals more than mistakes. It uncovers ambition, audacity, and the art of storytelling gone awry. Dive into the chaos, witness the spectacle, and decide for yourself. Which of these flops deserved greatness?